Hey, what's up, guys? This is Twanran, and today I have someone that I've known for quite a while, actually, low key. My friend Cyrus, aka Tyrannosaurus Rex. Um, you want to say hi?
Hi, everybody.
He is a professional stuntman. He's would you call it competitive or professional Gran Turismo player? I don't know.
I'd say competitive.
Okay.
I haven't made it to the top competitions yet.
Gotcha. And then on top of that, we're gonna talk a little bit about some mental health. Maybe throw it in there. So,
Absolutely.
Cyrus, tell me a little bit about the stunting. I want to hear about the stuntman stuff and the tricking. How'd you get into that, and why do you still do it?
So when I was I think I was 5 or 6 when I first started watching like kung fu movies with my grandpa. My grandpa taught me some karate. He learned some stuff when he was traveling around during World War II, of all places, of all
Wow.
things, I should say. And he learned some karate, and so he tried to teach me and my uncle a little bit, and that kind of got me. I fell in love with martial arts at a really young age, and then I started watching Jackie Chan movies, and I loved that Jackie Chan could just, he seemed like he was an amazing fighter and he could do anything. And then as I learned more about Jackie Chan, I learned more about the stunt industry and how, stuntmen go into movies, and how big the stunt industry is. And I decided when I was about 6 years old that is what I want to do with my life.
Wow.
And so I dedicated a lot of my life, as much as I could, to trying to learn martial arts, but I could never afford it growing up. And so I had to settle for just watching kung fu movies and trying to copy the moves and read the books and that kind of stuff. And
sorry.
yeah, no, all good. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna ask, what is it an expensive thing to do
Martial arts is super expensive, unfortunately.
because of the stuff you wear or the classes?
The trying to learn, do group lessons is like the main way to do it, but you can also do private lessons. Private lessons are like 10 times more expensive.
Yeah.
But with even group classes, I think the national average for group lessons when I quit the martial arts industry about 2 years ago was still like $150 a month.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so we grew up pretty poor, and so we could never afford that. We could afford the old VHS movies though to copy the the kung fu moves though.
Yeah.
And so when I think I was 20 years old, and I met this guy who started a martial arts studio, and eventually it turned into a non-profit martial arts studio. So I then got to help kids who were just like me, who couldn't afford martial arts, and I got them into martial arts classes.
Wow. And so with stuntmen, do you do movies or things like that, or is it mostly the tricking?
So I do a little bit of everything. I got into tricking because I figured that would be the best way to become a stuntman. I wanted to be able to do car stunts and then martial arts, like fight scenes and that kind of stuff. And so the first thing that I did to get me an audition was actually a tricking audition. One of my childhood heroes got me my audition, and then there's this kind of a long process to getting in the union. But the first thing I did was TV shows, and then I've also done one movie and a couple commercials as well.
Oh, wow. And is kung fu the main thing that most stuntmen choose to do, or is it kind of any type of martial arts, or can it be other than martial arts?
Yeah, so I mean, you get a lot of different people doing stunts, because stunts can be really, really versatile. Like you can have all kinds of different stunts. You have motorcycle guys doing motorcycle stunts, clearly, but pretty much anyone who's done like an extreme sport, gymnastics, or martial arts will end up being a fall guy, like the kind of guy that just gets thrown onto the ground or falls off something. Like that's probably the most common kind of thing. Fight choreography, that kind of stuff. But like beyond that, it's usually like really highly specialized stuff.
Oh, okay. But did you have a favorite stunt?
A favorite stunt? Actually, the first gig that I ever had, and one of the last gigs that I've had since I've been doing that. I haven't worked much in the past couple of years when it comes to stunts, but they're all fight scenes. As directed by the guy who you might not know much. I don't know how much you know of Star Trek, but there's a guy who was famous in the 80s who played Riker on Star Trek, who ended up directing me, and I had to do 17 takes of it of the biggest fall I've ever done, and it was like the most painful stunt I've ever done, but it was also like the coolest thing I'd ever gotten to do on screen. And I got a really cool director, so that was probably my favorite.
What'd you have to do?
It was this fight scene for the show called The Librarians, where it was a hilarious episode where a bunch of guys stole Santa's sleigh. Show was ridiculous. And then we were henchmen guarding the sleigh, and the hero of the show came and beat the crap out of all of us.
Oh my gosh.
So he starts off by breaking a sledgehammer I had in my hand, and then as I finally get up at the end of the scene, he then sweeps it under my leg, and I do like a one-footed flip with a half twist landing on my back. And I had to do that 17 times. I also had a fever.
Oh man.
Which was you better show up no matter what.
Yeah.
Scene
and do you think that
crazy.
I mean, you see these things in movies with the fight scenes especially and all that. Do you think that when you do that, are you thinking like this is totally unrealistic, this is over exaggerated, or does it feel like something that could actually happen?
It's usually for any kind of fight scene, if anything's realistic, it's going to be the most boring thing you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And so not only are the stunts super, super unrealistic, but also the, surely most movies do a really good job of hiding it, but like a lot of the stuff has to be cheated. So like everyone's going to be kind of facing the same direction. And like if someone's pointing a gun at you, they're probably not actually pointing it at you.
Yeah.
Like, so when you're on that side of the camera, not only that, but then you have 40 people behind the camera. So none of it all just takes all of the realism out of it. And it kind of all just kind of blends it like getting thrown in the air with a sledgehammer. Like you never really even consider like that it would be even close to realistic, because all of it is just so it's just so off the wall and hilarious in order for it to be even worth a stunt usually.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, I mean, you decided to do this at 6 years old. I mean, I'm 23 and I was still a bit iffy until about a year ago. I mean, did you not like school? Did you enjoy school?
I did not have a good time in school. I had I didn't have a lot of mentors growing up. And so I struggled academically. It's actually, I'm learning more and more that it's a pretty common trait for people who have undiagnosed ADHD. But I was not diagnosed with ADHD. As I became an adult, it became very clear that I have ADHD. And I was able to get by in school until about 8th grade without ever even trying whatsoever. Like I was in the gifted class and in 5th grade. And then so all I'd ever do is I'd go to school and then I'd come home and daydream about martial arts and video games. And so, like I didn't like school whatsoever. And all day at school, I was thinking about martial arts, being a stuntman, chasing the dream, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And so when did you start to get into video games? Was that alongside the martial arts? Was that tied to it in any way?
So, I mean, a lot of the first video games I played were like Street Fighter, that kind of stuff. I mean, I played games a lot before then, but I played games pretty much my whole life, partially because I didn't have any siblings and my mom was raising me by herself. And so in order to keep me occupied, a lot of the times it was easiest just to let me play games. And playing video games also kept me out of trouble.
Yeah.
Too. And so focused on the video games. And then, and I think they were always connected. That's actually a really interesting question. They've always been really connected, especially when it came to driving. I mean, especially now that I've done, like, the things that I've done when it comes to driving video games actually led me to doing things in real life with cars, too. So, and that was always a part of the stuntman dream. I actually have not made it into doing any driving stunts at all yet. Yeah. It's still something I want to do.
Yeah, I mean, those are really crazy. I don't know if you've seen Better Call Saul, but there's this one, and I'm sure this is in a lot of movies too. There's this one stunt where the car is driving and the guy, the driver falls out of it or something, and the car just it goes on its side and flips over numerous times. And I think I learned that there was a stuntman doing that.
Damn.
And I can't even imagine what.
Yeah.
I mean, you must have to sign some contracts or something, right? Like,
definitely.
If you get hurt, like it's not their fault or something like that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. The stunt industry does a really good job of protecting the stunt players, which is really cool. In fact, there were 2 times that stunt people have died in the past decade when it comes to the film industry in North America. And both times the studios got sued, and as far as I know, they lost as well because it actually was negligence in a couple of the cases. The way that it usually works is the person, if they're trying to do a car stunt, they'll talk to someone who's choreographed a car stunt, and that person usually has an entire team of people that he trusts.
Okay.
So like, whereas I got hired because I was a local guy who happened to be able to do a lot of the things they needed, I saved them thousands of dollars by not having to fly in someone from elsewhere. Yeah. But when it comes to driving, they would never cut the corners and hire anyone who hadn't proved themselves to the coordinator.
Yeah. Was there ever a stunt you did that you felt in danger doing at all?
Let's see. Honestly, no.
That's good.
There were a couple stunts when I had to do something brand new for the first time on camera. So I did something called a ratchet stunt, where they take, I think it's a pneumatic piston that is attached to a pulley. It's the kind of thing where, like, if someone gets shot with a shotgun in a movie and then they fly unrealistically away in the blast, like that's usually a ratchet stunt.
Oh, okay.
So the first time I had to do that was actually on the set. I'd never trained for it before, but I'd worked with the coordinators and they knew my capabilities. And so we had discussed everything that would happen, got a quick crash course on it. And it's funny that I said that. And then we went from there. I never felt really in danger because I trusted the coordinators, and the director wasn't asking us to do anything that was really crazy. So yeah, luckily I've had really good coordinators.
Oh, that's really good. And I know you've talked about, you've done these stunts where, you're kind of it seems like you're more in like a group of bad guys. And I know that in that case, it doesn't necessarily matter if the camera sees your face, but have you had to do one where you've kind of had to stand in for one of the actors or something like that, and they've kind of had to shoot it in a specific way so that you couldn't really see your face?
Yeah, that's a super good question. There's actually different types of stunt work. There's stunt doubling, as what you're describing.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff that I do is stunt acting, and so rather than hire an actor to do a fight, they'll hire a stuntman to then act for a minute, and so then they can use their face and not have to be creative with it. One time I did do stunt doubling. Actually met one of my favorite celebrities on that shoot too, and I got to
really.
I got to double as this guy. It was really weird meeting him. I was like, "Oh, you're my exact size and build, and you look exact like me from this angle." That's weird. He was also really cool, but yeah. So I actually got in trouble because I didn't think about it, and I lifted my head, and they're like, "All right, cut." Saw the stunt face. I'm like, "Oh no!" It's like heartbreaking when you screw up a shot, because for your average television show, it's something like operating costs is something like, I want to say it's literally something crazy like $5,000 to $10,000 per minute just to operate.
Oh my gosh.
The scene. Yeah. And so like at that point that if you screw up a scene, you just cost the studio thousands of dollars. It's really,
that's funny. I always wondered why. I've always wondered about actors and like them messing up and what effect that has in the studio.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was that expensive, but that explains a lot.
And so that's like your middle line production too. So like you watch the outtakes, like if you ever watch The Office, they do outtakes all the time, and they take a lot of risks letting the actors ad lib. There has to be so much trust in an actor's ability to ad lib for them to actually allow them to do that kind of thing, and for them to go along with them like playing pranks while they're filming and stuff. That must mean that like they really trust the actor.
Yeah, definitely.
For that kind of thing. Yeah.
So what is it that when you're doing a stunt, when you're doing a trick or something like that, just for fun, what is it that you feel? I mean, you've been doing this for so long. Do you still feel exhilarated when you're doing it?
Yeah. So on when you're on set and you're about to perform a stunt that they're actually filming, it feels really similar to just any kind of competition you might have been in. Like so I did track and field, and I've done martial arts tournaments, and I do sim racing. And so the closest feeling is when you're about to compete, because you've got to perform. You're going to be scared. A lot of people are relying on you, and you could get hurt. And so it's extremely exhilarating every single time. Still, when it comes to like tricking, the flips and stuff, that's just pure fun for me. But part of that is also pushing myself to try to do something that's potentially dangerous or something like beyond that I've done. So like it's I guess I'm just kind of an adrenaline junkie, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, I could have guessed that.
Yeah.
Now, how did you said you started with Street Fighter? Well, first of all, I always like asking people this question. What was the first console you had, and what was the first game you played on it?
So actually, the first console that I remember playing is your good old NES.
Uh huh.
And when I was playing that, it was actually the newest console that existed, because I am that old. And I got an old Atari because my uncle fixed one up for me, but that was before my time.
Yeah.
I've played every single console since they've been out, except for the Jaguar, the 3DS, not 3DS, I can't remember what it's called, the Nintendo VR from early 90s. I never played GameCube randomly.
Really?
And never played Wii U. But I played every single console that's been out besides that, including 3DO and Sega Saturn and Sega CD.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
Oh.
What was the first game? The first game, was it Street Fighter that you remember playing?
Oh no, I'm sorry, I completely skipped that.
No, it's okay.
I remember Mario, just Mario Brothers.
Just the original?
I feel like that was it. Yeah.
My goodness, that was such a different time for video games.
Yeah, I've been playing forever. My thumbs are old and worn out.
What's your okay? You played every console. What's your favorite controller? What do you think feels the most comfortable in your hands?
DualShock 3.
Okay, that's an interesting
changing.
one.
That might be changing because I just started playing with the DualSense.
Which one is that?
That's the PS5 controller.
Okay, I didn't know it was called that.
I love it.
I've heard it's very nice. It seems like they've kind of bulked it up a tiny bit to fit your hands a bit better.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting you say the DualShock 3 because they changed from the DualShock 2 to the 3. They added the triggers, but the weird part was that they made the triggers convex.
Yeah.
It was very strange. Yeah.
I think the reason I like it the most is because I spent so much time on it in Gran Turismo.
Mm-hmm. Was it Gran Turismo 5 mostly?
It was 3.
3, okay.
Wait. Not the DualShock 3, the DualShock 2.
Okay,
is my favorite.
okay, yes.
Yeah.
And that's when the trigger was still a button.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think... Yeah. And it's still... I'm trying to actually remember if I'm telling the truth right now. Because I know it was because of I remember specifically it being Gran Turismo 3, but that was definitely PlayStation 2.
Yes, it was.
So it must be the DS. It's got to be the DS2. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a great controller.
Yeah. I have to know what your favorite is.
My favorite console or controller?
Controller.
I don't know. I haven't tried the DualSense. I haven't even really tried... I've tried the DualShock 4, but only a little bit. I feel like I would really like one of those. Honestly, the Xbox One controller is really, really comfortable. Just the regular Xbox One controller.
It is.
I spent so long using the DualShock 1 and 2. For me, they were the same, because I had the DualShock 1 with the analog sticks. So it's basically the same thing. I spent so long using that. Like the first 10 years of my life. Just using that controller.
That's crazy to think about. Generational gap.
Yeah. But yeah, the Xbox One controller, I think it's partly because when I decided I wanted to get a bit better at Call of Duty and all that kind of stuff, it was with an Xbox controller, and I think I kind of got so used to moving so fast with it and aiming with it and things like that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I realized that my first Call of Duty was also, I think... No, my first Call of Duty was DS3.
DS3. So it was, COD 4 or World at War or something?
COD 4, exactly, yeah.
COD 4. Yeah, I played the Call of Duty 3 campaign on my PS2, but then I started playing COD 4 also. That was one of the first games I played online.
That was, same here. It was the second game I played online.
What was the first?
Gran Turismo HD. And it wasn't even really online, it was just leaderboards.
HD?
Yeah, so it was
Where'd that fall?
It was right before Gran Turismo 5. Well, not right before. It was right after Gran Turismo 4 and before Gran Turismo 5.
Oh, I didn't even hear about that one. I used to play Gran Turismo when I was very, very young, the original. And
It's such a good one.
yeah, 2 and 3 I didn't play much. 4 I played a lot. And 5 played a little bit, not too much. But, I mean, 1, I'll always remember in Gran Turismo 1, I never played online. I mean, I don't even know if there was online back then. There probably was, like, tournaments, but they would be LAN.
Yeah.
But I remember I think it was you know how they had all the regular cars, and then for each make of a car, they had like one special car. And I remember for the Mitsubishi, they had the special car, and it was so fast, and the handling was perfect, and you just couldn't go wrong with that.
I think I remember that specific car.
Yeah, they had it in some yellow color and then a gray color, and I always got it in the yellow. I forget.
You said Mazda, right? Or do you say Mitsubishi?
Mitsubishi, I believe. But I think I remember the Mazda one too.
Yeah. The special cars were so cool. We're hoping they bring it back. This is not really insider information because they've talked about it, but if you're not in the Gran Turismo scene, you might not know. But they're trying to make it a lot like Gran Turismo 2 and 4.
Really?
Like the whole feel of it. Yeah.
In what way?
The creator didn't realize that there was so much nostalgia with the old games until the World Tour drivers, when they had the World Tour event a couple years ago, actually brought their original PlayStation 1 consoles and were playing it in the hotel rooms.
Wow.
And so, like, the current Gran Turismo, you're not even able to customize your car.
Really?
Like, almost, you can paint your cars and you can put on wheels, and that's about it. Like, you can't put on all the extra different, like, you can't piece it together and try to use the car to beat the campaign mode. It's got the weakest campaign mode. The entire game is essentially a test for their online sport mode. And so what they're doing is they're bringing back the used cars, which was a big thing from Gran Turismo 4.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah, that was so good.
Yeah.
And we're hoping that they're going to bring back the race versions of cars in the special versions.
I spent almost all my time in those games doing the license challenges.
Yeah.
There were so many.
They were so difficult back then too.
They were so hard. Oh my god.
There's almost nothing that's even close to that hard in the current Gran Turismo. That was another big complaint.
Really?
Like, so the license test for Gran Turismo Sport, I beat them all the first night.
Oh my gosh.
Got as much, beat them all as hard as, like, with the platinum trophy or whatever they have. Yeah, and so, like, a lot of people report the same thing. It's the easiest license challenges of any Gran Turismo yet.
Yeah, back then it would take months.
Yeah. You like really had to dedicate time and slog through it.
So how'd you get into Gran Turismo in the first place? And how'd that transition into you getting competitive with it?
I always loved cars, and that was thanks to my uncle and my cousin. I remember one time my aunt brought home magazines for my cousin and I, and one of them was a hot rodding magazine, and the other one was sport compact car. And my cousin grabbed the hot rod magazine, so I grabbed that one, and it featured the R33 Nissan Skyline.
Okay.
And I was like, this car is super cool. And so, like, at that point, I'd just played, like, different arcade racing games and that kind of stuff. But I found I think it was just 2 years later, Gran Turismo 1 came out, and that game featured the Skyline heavily. And so I was like, I remember this car. This is that Japanese car that I've never seen in real life that I really love. And so I played that. I played a lot of Gran Turismo 2 my first year of high school and through middle school. And then I kind of fallen out of love with it. And I remember that my friend really wanted to play Gran Turismo 3, and I was only kind of sold on it. And he didn't have a PlayStation. He's like, I will drive you to the mall and I will give you $10 towards the game if you let me play this game with you. I'm like, he's like, come on, I'll drive you to the mall. I didn't have a car, and he didn't have a PlayStation. So I was like, all right, let's go. And I made him go and actually purchase the game too, which is messed up. I was like super against buying it for no reason. And then I fell in love with Gran Turismo all over again. And for the next 4 years, I played almost nothing except Gran Turismo when it came to video game time.
Wow.
Like, I played probably, honestly, like, this sounds like an exaggeration, but at least 3 hours a day for the next 4 years until Gran Turismo 4 came out. I played that game, and I spent most of my time just drifting. And
Really?
yeah, so I was just trying to drift everything, and that's how I found out about Initial D. Are you familiar with Initial D?
No, I'm not.
It's this hilarious anime about essentially like the scene in Japan where drifting originated, and it's really silly. And there's lots of like, have you heard the meme Eurobeat intensifies?
I
It's
think
okay if you
I
haven't.
feel like I have. It sounds very familiar, and definitely heard Eurobeat, but I don't know.
It's all silliness, but I
Yeah.
discovered Initial D, and then I discovered a whole bunch of like the drifting scene and stuff that went along with that through Gran Turismo, and kind of fell in love with drifting around the same time.
Huh.
And I fell back in love with the entire series. I went back and I completed the games as much as I think Gran Turismo 2 had a glitch where you couldn't do 100%, but I completed Gran Turismo 4, Gran Turismo 3. And then we talked about it earlier, but GTHD actually changed my life. I spent all that time drifting offline, and GTHD was the first game that not only had leaderboards, but it had leaderboards for drifting. And I was so successful on those leaderboards that it literally gave me the confidence to pursue tricking. And it was the first time I'd ever competed in anything like at all. And I was the number one spot on all 20 leaderboards in the United States.
Wow.
For like 2 months. I was like, okay, it looks like I can do things. So what else can I do? And it literally changed my life.
Wow.
So that's when I really started going after sim racing in Gran Turismo.
Yeah, and so in these games, I mean, with a racing game, you almost don't expect it to ever be able to get worse, right? From one installment to the next. But do you think that there have been any Gran Turismo games that have been worse than the last? I know you mentioned sport being a little iffy.
Gran Turismo 4 is where it peaked, actually.
Really?
And so there have been 3 games since then.
Yes.
So Gran Turismo 5 was a pretty great game, but one of the biggest gripes that I had with it was when you went to drifting, and when you went to the drifting mode, it had different physics. And so you can't trust a game that has to change the physics between modes. You just can't trust the physics of the game in that case. Gran Turismo 6 was more of the same, and at the beginning there was a huge issue with one of the driving aids. So you've got traction control, you've got ABS. There's something that they added called skid recovery force, which when you started sliding the car, it would give you like artificially good grip. It would give you more grip in order to recover from sliding, which a lot of people abused. And so like people who had never seen a top 500 in the leaderboards in Gran Turismo 5 were getting top 10s with that.
Wow.
And so like a group of us kind of started just choosing to have our own time trial where we didn't use it. It was called the No Skid Recovery Force group.
Yeah.
But they ended up fixing that. So like, yeah, from Gran Turismo 4, it kind of went downhill. And then Gran Turismo Sport, a lot of the community has rallied behind it and started falling in love with it for what it is. But it specifically is not the same type of game as the numbered Gran Turismos. And so people who grew up liking Gran Turismo, there's a lot of them who just straight up do not like sport whatsoever.
Okay. Now, do they have a good selection of cars, or is it, I mean, when you hear sport as opposed to the number, you almost feel like it's a one-off of this actual series.
That's pretty much what it ended up being. It's essentially like a test bed for the online racing component. Like Gran Turismo 5 and 6 had a little bit of the online racing, but it didn't have what Gran Turismo Sport has. And so Gran Turismo Sport, I think it now has twice as many cars as when it first started, but it's still like maybe a third of what Gran Turismo 4 had.
Wow, yeah, Gran Turismo 4 had a ton.
An obnoxious amount, right? That was one of our favorite parts too.
That was great.
I love that about it.
Yeah. I remembering I was playing GTA 4 with my cousin who was visiting, and I tricked her. I chose like the fastest F1 car that had perfect handling, and I made her choose this little tiny like European truck that topped out at 40 miles per hour.
That's the best way.
Yeah.
I love that. We've all done that.
Yeah.
We've all definitely done that, especially with cousins. Hey, go ahead and choose that car. It's good.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite map throughout all the Gran Turismos?
Probably Deep Forest or Trial Mountain. That's another big thing about sport. It doesn't have a lot of the original maps. A lot of the original tracks. A lot of people hate it because of it.
And
It's always been Trial Mountain for
are the
me.
new maps, are they good at least, or are they just kind of
So a lot of them are just real tracks, which
okay.
and so there's always been a bit of a mix of it, but they focus more on real tracks because they actually got. So you've heard of FIFA, right?
FIFA, yeah.
So that organization, they run soccer around the world, football, if you will. The FIA is the same equivalent for racing around the world, and so Gran Turismo actually partnered with the FIA. And I think one of the reasons that they have the tracks that they have is because they can verify these real world tracks as being usable for online competitions.
Oh, I see. So were the maps in the old games, were some of them made up?
Most of them were made up.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So there's Grand Valley Speedway, Autumn Ring.
Autumn Ring, I remember.
Yeah, that was a good one. Trial Mountain, Deep Forest, all of them completely made up.
Wow. I was a big fan. There were two of them. I mean, Nuremberg Ring? Am I doing that right?
Nürburgring, yeah.
Yeah, that was a classic. I mean,
that was real.
Yes, I think I knew that. I think I knew that one was real. But the one that I really liked, there was this in Gran Turismo 1, there was this map at night, and you'd go and you drive under this bridge, and it'd be like one of those underwater bridges where it's lit up.
Yeah.
I think that was my favorite map.
You want to hear the craziest part about that?
Yeah.
That's real.
That's real.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really
So Gran
cool.
Turismo they've done a really good job of kind of making tributes to real world racing cultures. And so have you heard of the game Midnight Club?
No. Wait. Actually, I think I have.
That is actually named after a famous group of street racers in Japan. And the place that they would race is the Shudo Expressway. So all of the special stage tracks and the one that you were mentioning are all actual parts of the Shudo Expressway in Japan.
Ooh, wow. That makes sense. It has that feel.
Yeah,
kind of a
I'm trying to remember the name of the bridge. The Rainbow Bridge, I think.
Oh.
That then just goes directly underwater.
Yeah, that is really cool.
That's super cool. My the captain of my sim racing team actually went there.
Ooh.
Someday I'll make it.
One day you'll go.
Yeah.
And so, I think I wanted to ask something else about the Gran Turismo. It just escaped my mind. Are you on a team right now, or?
I am, yeah. So the funny thing is, when I joined the sim racing team, it was entirely by chance that I met the guy, and there was no one else for like the first year on Gran Turismo. They were all on other sims.
Okay.
And so I had to recruit someone to actually help me out with the races and train with.
Yeah.
I'm part of a sim racing team called Street Version, and their main focus, and they started on toge racing, which is what Initial D was. I mentioned that earlier, but essentially their favorite thing is racing up and down the windy mountain roads of Japan.
Ooh.
Yeah, if you ever check out Initial D, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, look at that.
It's hilarious. But we're all in love with it, and it's where a lot of my initial racing inspiration came from.
I see. Japan in general seems to be a big inspiration for.
Yeah, I'm a big. I'm trying to think of if the term that we used back in the day is outdated, but like when I was a kid, they called us also Japanophiles. You might have heard the term weeaboo.
Yes, I've heard that one.
Yep, there you go. That's the new one.
That's a funny one.
But yeah, I love many things about Japan. Definitely.
Yeah, there's a lot to love.
Yeah.
Yes.
It really is.
Yeah. So, you also play a decent amount of Call of Duty. I mean, I know you stream. I don't know if you still do, but you used to stream it once a week. I have not been on Twitch in quite a while, but
all good.
This is a Call of Duty. I mostly post Call of Duty, so I'm obliged to ask.
Absolutely. I love.
What does that game mean to you?
Man, so that was also a big part of. I actually initially wanted to be a Gran Turismo. A Call of Duty streamer.
Oh,
I actually
really?
got to Twitch affiliate entirely on Call of Duty and was unsure if people would want to watch me drive. Which is the funniest thing.
That makes sense. I mean, completely different games.
Yeah, I was nervous when I first started doing driving streams, and it's funny that's what has made me take off. I used to just I didn't know anything about competitive. I still don't. I just love pub stomping.
Yeah,
Like
it's fun.
I would, yeah. I'd spend all my like when in between periods of time when I'd play racing sims, it was always I'd always hang out with friends and play COD, and I'd
Yeah.
always like back in I peaked Black Ops 1,
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Great game.
To this day, because top 3 finish is still considered not a loss, I have yet to lose a free for all in Black Ops 1. And I to this day, I used to actually like try really hard back in the day, but now it's mostly like my secondary game that I play to stream for fun, and I am definitely nowhere near as good as I used to be.
Yeah. What do you play now? Do you play a lot of Cold War, or do you stick to the other one?
I'm in love with Cold War now, and I still do like we'll stream Cold War and then jump to Warzone
Okay.
at the end too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love Cold War.
it's a very fun game. The skill-based matchmaking can be a bit much sometimes,
Absolutely.
but it's still. I've just played it tonight. It was fun.
Are you maining that one?
I am maining almost nothing right now. I play enough to get the footage that I need, and like
Yep.
I hop on random games. I played Halo tonight. I play Star Wars Battlefront 2 sometimes. I was thinking about even
Yeah.
playing through Spyro Reignited again.
Yes.
Love that game. Don't get me started with Spyro. I'll go on for 3 hours. But
I still remember. Oh my God, Spyro.
yeah, wait, I'll get to that in just a moment. But yeah, Warzone, it's a great mode, and there's so many great things about it. But I am just so burnt out on the Battle Royale stuff.
I can imagine.
I mean, I played a ton of Blackout, a lot of Fortnite back then, and then after that, it was just, I don't know, I just couldn't get back into it. I was
It's a
tired of waiting in
difficult grind.
lobbies. Yeah, it's a big grind, yeah. You can't just casually play that.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite
No.
Call of Duty?
Oh, Black Ops 1.
Black Ops 1. Yeah. That was a really great one.
I still love the dive.
Yeah,
Dolphin dive.
that's what they
I
introduced
miss
the
that
dive.
so much.
It took them years and years to come up with a slide.
I know. It's
They
silly.
didn't think that maybe a slide would be more useful than a dive.
It was so dangerous to ever use the dive.
The dive was so bad. It's so
It's pretty
funny,
much-
though.
It's just a troll move.
It is. I mean, you use it when you're jumping on flags or trying
Yeah.
to jump through a doorway or something. Oh my gosh.
I love that they did that. Yeah, there's when you have no fall damage. Is it Marathon Pro?
No, it was Lightweight Pro.
Lightweight Pro.
Yeah.
You just jump off the highest point in the
Yep.
game and land on yourself.
Yeah, that was a good one.
I love that.
Yeah.
I played that so much.
Yeah, that was a big game for me. That's where I think that was like the turning point. I definitely started to want to get better in Modern Warfare 2, and I did
Yeah.
towards the end, but it was towards the end. In Black Ops 1, I remember at the beginning I was a very big camper, and then I slowly progressed and started running around, and that's when I think that was the transition period.
Started that rush life.
Yeah, of course.
How long have you been quickscoping?
Quick scoping?
Yeah.
I had a big phase of quickscoping in Modern Warfare 2. I think the thing is in COD 4 I probably quickscoped a bit with friends or something, but in COD 4 and World at War and stuff, my kill death ratio was like 0.4. I was awful. Just awful. And nowadays, I mean, after Modern Warfare 2, I didn't really quickscope much at all, but I do once in a while. It's fun to do. Especially
For
if
sure.
you do like a little private match free for all with friends and stuff.
Yeah.
That's always a nice time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But back to Spyro. Did you play that when
Oh
when it
my
came out?
gosh.
I mean, you were, I don't know how old were you when it came out in
I remember
1998?
playing the demo on PlayStation 1, and I never actually played the full game. It's one of my greatest
really?
video gaming regrets.
You got to play it.
I plan to. I actually plan to. I have plans to dig out my PlayStation 1 because last time I tried, it still worked like 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
And
have
so-
my PlayStation 1 packed away very safely.
Hell yeah. There's a retro gaming store close, and I know for a fact that I don't know for a fact they'll have Spyro, but they've got PlayStation 1 games, so I definitely
Yeah.
want to play Spyro.
It's a great
I know
game.
there's like a remastered version or something.
There is. They came out with it in 2018. I mean, I'm obviously biased, so I still prefer the original, but
Yeah.
they did an amazing job with the reignited.
That's good.
Remastered. I mean, uh, I was blown away at how great it was and how true to the original it was. Just such a cool experience that was.
How long do you think it takes, like, first playthrough, if you're really enjoying your time, to beat Spyro?
Well, it depends. Are you a completionist kind of guy, or just you want to kind of experience the whole game?
I'm a completionist usually.
It really doesn't take that long. So if you get Reignited Trilogy, it's 3 games. It's a bunch of collectibles and then some skill points. I think if you really play it, it wouldn't take more than a month at most.
Oh, that's not bad.
No, it wouldn't take long at all. It's a very, very chill experience. Most of the challenge comes from just like once in a while you'll have to figure out how exactly to jump to something and
Right.
stuff like that. But I definitely recommend it, whether it's the original or the Reignited. So good.
Definitely, it's on my short list of retro games to play through for the first time.
Yeah, it's such a pleasant game, especially right now during all this, difficult time. It's a very nice thing to play, I would imagine. I try not to play it too often because I'm the type of person who likes to keep my nostalgic, and I feel like if I play something too much or listen to big in music, if I listen to something too much later on, then the feeling, you listen to it and you get that same feeling you did when you listened to it at a certain time. And I feel like if you do that too much, it goes away.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Once every few years, I will definitely pull out Spyro. I was happy Reignited Trilogy came out because I felt like I could play it and that wouldn't be, the nostalgia thing wouldn't be an issue. Because I could play it a bit and it wouldn't feel exactly like the original.
That makes sense, yeah. Yeah. Since I never played through it, I feel like, I want to play the original.
Yeah.
Get that original experience.
I think it has a lot of quirks. It's great.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's so much fun. But, and they had a lot of innovative things. They had this one thing, a lot of games back then, the PS1, and I'm sure the older consoles, if you were in an open world game, it took a lot of, I don't know a ton about computer science or anything like that, graphics, but it took a lot of data to render things that were far away in the game. So what a lot of games would do is put a bunch of fog around you.
I remember that.
Yeah, what Spyro did was, I forget what it's called. Oh, I just heard it the other day too, but I can't remember. But they made it so that the farther away you are from something, the less detail it has. And so that helped to save the data and all that without necessarily compromising the color scheme and surrounding you with fog and things like that. Because the fog, I think, would have definitely changed the feel of the game.
Yeah. And that's like common practice now, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Like every game. I think it was the first game to use it. If I'm not mistaken.
That's incredible.
I might be completely wrong with that, but if not that, then one of the first games.
Yeah, I can't think of anything around that era besides that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really cool. But, yeah, I touched on the difficult time we're going through. And,
yes.
And what are you, I mean, are you still able to do your stunting or anything like that? Anything outside of the house?
I've had a really tough 2020, actually. Mm-hmm. I did. So doing the tricking, that stuff is mainly done, especially I'm in Oregon, and
okay.
It's mainly done in a specific type of gym, like a gymnastics or a cheer gym.
Yeah.
And back in March of last year, they closed down all of them.
Really?
And whereas they've had like some private sessions here and there over the last year, but I'm pretty high risk.
Mm-hmm.
And so I couldn't risk it. I couldn't risk going to them. So I haven't been to a gym now it's now 11 months as of today.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah. So I haven't been to that gym. I haven't been to a weightlifting gym, but luckily I've got weights in my garage.
That's good.
But I haven't done any flips at one of the gymnastics or cheer gyms for 11 months now. And during the summer I can train outside, but it gets down to like 40 degrees, which it's not the worst part, but then it rains for 9 months of the year here in Oregon.
Yeah.
And so trying to do stuff either like on dry cement, which really limits what I can do because
definitely
I don't want to die. And then, and then on the grass, when it's wet, it's really easy to tear stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's really sketchy trying to do stuff on wet grass. So I haven't been able to. This is the longest I've gone without jumping in my entire life. This last 5 months.
Yeah, that must be really tough.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was.
Sorry.
That was. Tricking was like my main. Besides gaming, is my main like. It's my confidence booster. It was what kept me in shape. It was my one social outlet essentially, and so like that is gone.
Yeah.
But around that same time, since my wife works at a hospital, I also had to move downstairs. And so I live in a tent in my living room.
Oh my gosh.
And my wife sleeps upstairs in our bedroom.
Jeez.
Luckily
really
for technology, like we can video chat and stuff like that. But
that's great.
I've spent like 1 week actually with my wife the past year.
Oh my gosh.
Things were crazy.
How long have you guys been together?
We've been together for a little bit, like 6.5 years now.
Wow.
Actually, we've been married for 6.5 years. We've been together for 8.5 years. And we've known each other for 18 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah,
we met on MySpace.
No, really?
Yeah.
That was after my time.
That's our favorite story to tell people.
Yeah, that's right after my time. That's funny.
That's perfect.
Oh my gosh, MySpace.
It's so funny.
Yeah, I feel like I do not know anything about MySpace other than there was some guy that I think when you made a MySpace or something, there was a profile or something.
Tom.
Yeah,
he was automatically your friend.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing I know about MySpace.
MySpace was really interesting, actually. If you knew, like, you could learn how to code and actually, like, change not like the background and the layout of your page, and you can have music playing as people landed on your page and stuff like that. Oh my gosh! Yeah, it was actually like ever since then, that kind of functionality hasn't been back in social media. Not. And they did the most toxic thing ever, though. They did your top 6 friends. And so you had to actually manually choose who was displayed.
Terrible. That's so awful. Dude, it was
so
such a different time because these, at first, back in those days, and the late 2000s, these social media apps, they had like anonymous places or parts of their site where you could anonymously say things. Yeah. And then some apps that centered around that popped up, like Yik Yak. Did you know about Yik Yak?
No, I don't think so.
It was this app, this terrible app. I don't know what they were thinking with this, where you could go on it and it would like sync to your location or your region, and you could post anonymously on it anything you wanted, and people in the region would see it. And so people, I mean, you can imagine a bunch of high schoolers using this.
Oh, yeah.
Would just bully each other on this.
Oh, that's terrible.
And I think since then it's been shut down, I would hope. I do not know what the motivation for that was.
Yeah,
I mean, I understand.
Posting based on region. Let's see how horrible the people around you are.
Yeah. I mean, I see how they thought people would want to use it, but from an ethical perspective, just a terrible idea.
That's a really rough idea.
Yeah. So how have you been coping with not being able to do stunts and see your wife as often? Is it mostly video games, or do you have anything else that helps?
Yeah, pretty much just video games and friends. Being able to chat with friends. Luckily, because I think if I wasn't streaming, I'd be in a much worse place because I wouldn't be able to keep my job. I quit my job to stream. Okay. I can't do any stunt work because I can't afford to potentially catch the COVID on a stunt gig. So I would just be unemployed with nothing but video games if I hadn't started streaming. Yeah, streaming is a really wonderful thing. Definitely not for everyone. I mean, it can be a lot, but yeah. And I mean, there have been times where it's been too tough for me too. Like, it's really interesting. So like, when you're streaming and you see your buddies streaming, you go in and you give them a hard time. Mm-hmm. Like, you talk crap to them and that kind of stuff. But what's really interesting is if you stream for a long time, your friends see you for maybe like a half hour, an hour at a time. And if everyone you know comes in and gives you crap for the entirety of the time that they're there, you know deep down that your friends are messing with you. And you know deep down that like people are just having fun with you, but it's really hard like when you start hearing the same thing. Like, so like if I'm driving in Gran Turismo and then literally 50 of the people I know come in and tell me that I'm really slow and I'm terrible at driving, like I know that they're messing with me, but you start believing it.
Yeah.
Especially when you don't have like a lot of other social outlets and stuff like that. So it's really interesting looking from the streamer's perspective. Like, as much as it's just sitting there talking to people playing video games, it's weird the kind of things that kind of test your mental health that you might not think about.
Yeah, 100%. There are a lot of things that I mean, I streamed for not a super long time, but I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months, something like that.
Yeah.
And it was fun, but there are a lot of little things that kind of build up that aren't for some people. I mean, there's that, what you just said. There's the fact, the biggest thing for me was feeling like I had to play games when I didn't want to play.
Yep.
That was the biggest thing, because there are times when I just don't want to play video games for a week or 2 weeks or something like that. Or I just don't want to play Call of Duty. I don't know.
Yeah, 100%.
And even though I was just doing it for fun, you still feel an obligation to...
Very much so.
To people please, I guess.
Very, very much so.
It's tough. I mean, there's smaller things. You feel... you definitely hesitate when you think you want to go to the bathroom or you want to get food or you want to step away from the computer. It's very small things, but they add up.
It took me the longest time to be comfortable with taking a break.
Yeah.
I used to stream just for straight up 6 hours without taking a break. I'd prepare my snacks and stuff. So it'd just be sitting next to me. I had a mini fridge. Yeah. I just wouldn't get up. And then when I did, it would stress me out. I'm like, they're just waiting there. People are just hanging out. And it took a long time. That's one of those things where it's up to you to like realize how little people care if you take a break and how they would much rather you go and take care of yourself than to just sit there forcing yourself.
Yeah, because they can
it's
tell.
So hard from your perspective.
People can tell if you're in a bad mood or something like that.
Very much so. And it gets chaotic and get really chaotic when you're in a bad mood, because you'll have some people trying to joke their way out of it. Some people trying to help you.
Yeah. Then
in like the mix of personalities when you're in a bad mood can really make you like either misread the situation or it can get to you in different ways. It's really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And the gaming community in general, I mean, it's I was just saying this the other day to someone. It's its own little culture. It really is.
And
if you don't know it, if you don't see it firsthand, it's just impossible to explain it.
Oh yeah.
And I definitely feel like it's been getting better. I think a lot of the biggest streamers who have a big influence, I think they are definitely trying to act kinder and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
But people watching and a lot of trolls and stuff like that, it's almost like there's a tradition of toxicity, and some people are trying to uphold that for some reason.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that. I feel like internet culture has been really interesting since the very beginning, because a lot of people they don't have to worry about confronting the people they talk to or in real life.
Yeah.
The anonymity of the internet in general brings out the worst in a lot of people.
Of course.
And then the video game culture in general, like you said, it's its own culture, and it's a subdivision, I guess, of internet culture in general. So you can definitely get some of the worst types of people.
Yeah. And it's funny, I mean, there's even further subdivisions, because if you've competitive, I don't know, or a professional speedrunner of Mario, very different person than a Call of Duty streamer or a League of Legends streamer or something like that.
Yeah.
Do you ever watch speedruns?
I don't, and I should.
You should.
Because actually I watched one speedrun, which was funny. It was a speedrun of Gran Turismo Sport, which is like the most meta speedrun, because racing in general is a speedrun.
Yeah.
So I watched that, which was awesome. And then I have a friend who I've been trying to get him into streaming, because he has, apparently, according to him, he thinks that he's got some world records in speedrunning. Mm-hmm. And he does it while doing flips as a joke.
No way.
and he works at a cheerleader gym. He's a cheerleader coach, and so like he's like, hey, check this out! I beat this world record, and I did 15 corkscrews in the middle of it.
Oh my gosh!
Well, you were made for the internet. Why don't you show people this stuff? He's like, too important. Awesome. And so yeah, like speedrunning's cool. Speedrunning is crazy.
It is. Did I cut you off before? Were you going to say something?
Oh, I don't think so.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, speedrunning is really cool. And some of those speedruns really wild. Anything over an hour, honestly, anything over 30 minutes, I don't think I would try. It's too much.
It's insanity.
It's endurance. I would try. There's a Spyro speedrun. Like any percent speedruns where it takes.
Yeah.
The world record is something like 7.5 minutes or something, and of course it's extremely hard to do that in itself, but at least it's not an endurance test.
Yeah, the endurance, I feel like it's similar to endurance racing, like the 24-hour races you were talking about before. Like when the last 24 hours of Daytona was separated by the people were on, I think they were less than a second apart.
Oh my gosh.
After 24 hours of racing. And so like these people have to be inch and millimeter perfect.
Yeah.
Constantly. Yeah, speedrunning it's a different. I watched my friend who I was talking about showed me his favorite speedrun, which is this kid doing a GoldenEye speedrun. Uh-huh. And like you can't see anything except the ground and him running diagonally. And then getting injured because he's like rocket boosting himself, and then he's screaming at the Vic like, I don't even know what's happening.
Yeah, you don't.
And apparently he just set a world record.
Yep. Those are the funniest ones. There's a Portal. If you look up the Portal speedrun, also it's very similar to that. You have no idea what's going on, and then he just finishes it.
And then he's done. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think speedrunning is amazing because it's just like all the same concepts of racing. It's just optimizing.
Yeah.
And essentially, like, real world racing is like this too, but cheating whenever you can to get through it.
Yeah.
Like, there's people that joke that Formula One is really a championship to see who can come up with the most innovative ways to cheat.
That's a very good way of putting it. Because a lot of times the racing, I wonder, I don't watch too much, but I like watching F1 and stuff once in a while. And I always wonder, how much can you... I mean, you have these techniques, like, what is it called when you drive right behind someone so the air doesn't go in your car?
Oh, drafting?
Drafting. Yeah. There's drafting and things like that, I mean, you can only perfect to a certain point, and then what? I mean, then if you don't think of it in terms of who can make these quote-unquote cheats, then it's just whoever starts in front. If everybody's perfect at drafting, for example, then that person will win, but what kind of
racing's really interesting in the way that like it's really easy. I shouldn't say it's really easy to learn, but it's the kind of thing where like after 100 and something years of racing, people are still like learning how to be faster with the specific driving techniques too.
Yeah.
It's really, racing's really interesting that way. But Formula One specifically, like you said, like trying to figure out, it is 100% who can, like there are articles about Formula One where people talk about like, what are the most interesting ways that you can cheat your way through this?
Whew.
And like, there's a famous race car driver who died in 1994. He was the last Formula One driver to die in a race, and he was also one of the best drivers of all time. But a lot of people think that he died specifically because there was on the team that he joined, they learned how to cheat. It wasn't actually cheating at the time, but it was pushing the envelope of what the rules suggested. And so part of it was that they had this crazy ability to control the suspension while the car was driving. And then when he switched the teams, they then announced that they're going to ban that technology. So then they had to kind of build that race car differently, and they didn't build it right. And I mean, that's a long story, but like it's all about just how do you cheat?
Yeah. Do you think it's similar in the Gran Turismo races you do, or what do you usually rely on? If I've seen you do some overtakes, is that right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly
okay,
that's
good.
Exactly right.
And things like that. And from my perspective, of course, it still looks impressive, but I wonder. I mean, what is the other person doing? Is it the other person doing something wrong, or is that you did something really good? I can never tell.
Yeah, so it's there's a lot of strategy that goes into like the competitive races, and being able to come up with a different strategy on the fly is a big help. But one thing we talk about is raw pace, just your ability to take the same car around the track at whatever speed you can. And generally the people who are like the people that I compete against are just straight up better at that than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And usually the videos I post they're essentially against random people. Okay. So there's like there's a way to get up, like there's a matchmaking system, but it's definitely not very, very good. And because of that, like I can be put up against someone who is 3 seconds per lap slower than me, like randomly.
Okay.
And so a lot of not all of them, but a lot of the overtakes are against people who are not as experienced as I am. And so I'm able to take advantage of that and do crazy passes that wouldn't otherwise work for the content.
Yeah. Hey, it looks impressive. And Gran Turismo reposted one of your videos that one time, I remember.
Yeah.
That was
I'm
cool.
trying to get them to do a third. They reposted 2 of mine.
Oh.
And I'm hoping to get, I'm always trying to tag them in that. I'm like, hey, guess what? I got more stuff.
Have you had any other, have they reached out to you any other times, or is there anything you want to do with them in the future?
Yeah. So, actually I did in 2014, I took part in something called GT Academy where
I think I remember that.
Yeah. We competed for a real racing career, and, I did not make it to the finals. I made it to I made it far enough that they sent me to New York to compete against the other guys.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
The guy who beat me that year, well, the guy who beat all of us that year, is currently driving in NASCAR.
Oh my gosh.
One of the guys who he didn't win, another one of the other competitors, he is a professional race car driver, and he's raced for Jackie Chan's Le Mans team, which is crazy.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Another one who was there the same year now is like the top Porsche driving instructor in California. And so like, there are a lot of opportunities when you work with Gran Turismo to go above and beyond. And so, a few of my friends have made it to the world finals. That's what I'm shooting for. It looks like they just made it even harder for me to reach that though. So right now I'm currently focused on trying to get much, much faster so that I can hopefully go. And so the world finals, they actually, except for this year, they actually take place in like really exotic places. My friend won in Tokyo.
That's awesome.
He went to Monaco for a competition.
Wow.
Australia, like they actually fly out the competitors. So my big goal is to make it to one of the World Tour events so I can, go be part of that.
Yeah.
Be part of that family and go travel the world. Thanks, man.
That'd be awesome.
Trying as hard as I can.
Oh, man. It's crazy how, so Gran Turismo is not lying when they say it's a real driving simulator, are they?
It's really interesting because, so the funny thing is Gran Turismo is like, even the creator acknowledges that it's not the most realistic, but it's hard to, realism's kind of a spectrum.
Yeah.
You can't do the wrong things in Gran Turismo and still be fast. But a lot of the things you can get away with in Gran Turismo, you cannot get away with in real life and in other simulators. If that makes sense. Yeah. Gran Turismo is essentially nowhere near as dangerous. Like even from, I don't mean like clearly you're not going to die if you crash the wall in Gran Turismo, but like in Gran Turismo, the Nürburgring, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
If you you can take any car in Gran Turismo and drive directly over all of the curbs in the Nürburgring. Yeah. If you even touch one of those curbs in iRacing, then you're going to be sideways and your car's broken.
What is iRacing?
iRacing is essentially its build is the most realistic simulator. It's most would say it's the second or third most realistic simulator.
Okay.
But it's what pretty much all the pros who race in real life, they'll also race in iRacing.
Oh, okay.
And that's how we did the Daytona 24 hours.
Oh, okay. I see. That's
really that's really scary because it's the damage is 100% realistic.
Yeah.
So like
in Gran Turismo, you hit a wall
crazy.
and you just there's like a slight bump.
Yeah. You're like,
yeah.
In fact, even as recently as GT Sport, one of the fastest ways to get around some of the tracks is to bump off a specific wall.
I have done that. I used to do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works really well.
It does. You can ride really those rails.
Yeah.
But like in iRacing, you can go over a curb wrong, and then the floor of your car will have so much damage that you lose 5 miles off your top speed.
Ooh, wow.
Like it's brutal.
Yeah.
Which of course is closer to real life too.
Yeah, of course. And I know you said you didn't never like school and all that, but
Yeah.
you're talking about a lot of things in Gran Turismo that have a lot to do with physics.
Yeah.
So, do you have an interest in physics or engineering or anything like that?
I do. That's the sad thing. Like, I was always a lot of really interesting academic things interest me, but I never knew what to do. I never knew how to study. I never had the patience for it. I definitely didn't realize I had ADHD when I was younger.
Yeah.
It became very apparent over the past 5-10 years that I'm very, very ADHD. And so, like, there's a lot of stuff that I wish that I could, like, people will talk about complex math, or I'll see people like an article on some crazy math proof, and I'll just be so jealous that I'll never grasp what they're even talking about. So yeah, it's interesting. And so I think that I love knowledge. Like, my wife and I watch Jeopardy religiously. I do love physics. I love learning more about it, both for racing and for the flips and stuff that I do.
Yeah.
But I was never academically gifted at all.
With physics, the interesting part about physics is I kind of see it as these two aspects. There's the real physics, which is all math, and it's interesting, but it's a lot unless you want to go into it.
Yeah.
And then there's the conceptual part, which is, you don't get to go as in depth, you don't get to understand the math behind it, but you understand it to a pretty good level.
Right.
And one thing that I really enjoy in chemistry is it's called physical organic chemistry. There's almost no math, and basically what it is just you kind of use, I'm going to think of the easiest way to explain this. Electrons go around an atom in very specific ways, and it's kind of just you learn how these electrons move and stuff like that without the math.
That sounds like exactly the kind of thing I like.
Yeah, exactly. So there's stuff like that, the conceptual portion of physics, that I think is very accessible, and there are probably a lot of shows about it and easy to absorb books, because nobody wants to read a physics textbook for fun.
Right.
But yeah, that's really cool though.
I like how many people, like, because of interesting social media, have like really quick lessons and that kind of, like, I was recently convinced to start a TikTok, which is hilarious because I'm in my mid-30s. And but like, I find myself just zoning out to science videos. I'm like, this is the coolest thing I've found on social media in years.
Yeah, you should look up on YouTube. It's called Minute Physics. Have you seen?
Ooh.
It's in Minute Physics. He started out. It's Minute Physics because he literally does 1, 2, 3, 4-minute videos about pretty complex physics topics. But
I love that.
It's very thought provoking. It's very sometimes not easy to understand, but easy to grasp at least.
Yeah,
There's
I like that.
There's this other guy called Veritasium. Very cool. You should definitely look up those guys. I think you'd really enjoy that.
I just subscribed to both of them.
That's fine.
Thanks to you.
Yeah, those are great.
Awesome.
And one more thing. So, your ADHD. I mean, does that still affect you to? And you don't have to talk about this if you don't like to. But does that still affect you to a level, or how do you deal with that?
Yeah. So actually, like, learning more about it's really funny. So, like, people had joked, like, "Si, you got ADHD?" I'm like, probably. I don't know.
Yeah.
And, like, people joked about it my entire life, and then, so what began my real, like, dive into learning more about it was I was on Facebook and I was following meme pages. I was like, oh, an ADHD meme page, that'll be really fun. And so I just clicked join. And then as I'm, like, seeing stuff on my feed, I'm like, oh, ADHD. And I'm, like, thinking that it's going to be a bunch of, like, memes and jokes. It's just a whole bunch of stories about how, hey, guess what? If this is you, you've got ADHD. So I'm like, oh, that's really poignant for a meme group. Yeah. And then I clicked on it and realized it's not whatsoever a meme group. My ADHD kicked in so hard that I didn't actually read the description or the name of the group. I just read ADHD.
Oh my goodness, what a way to figure it out.
And yeah, so I'm like, oh my God, do I actually? And so then I posted that story. I'm like, guys, listen. So this is how I found the group. And 400 people, they're like, reacted to it. They're like, this is exactly how I found the group. And this is exactly why. at the age of 40, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and now here's my life. And
Wow.
so like just hearing people's strange anecdotes and honestly the memes too have helped me realize that like a lot of these weird behaviors that I've had my entire life. So this is only half joking, but I've crashed on my head a lot, and because of martial arts, I've been punched and kicked in the head a lot. And so I've been like half joking that I probably have brain damage.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be also a big part of it. But every weird habit that I have is something that's really relatable to someone that has ADHD. Like the way that I treated school, how easy it was for me to just get by with like a C average without having to do any homework or focusing that much.
Mm-hmm.
How a lot of my stuff is just constantly cluttered, but not exactly dirty.
Yeah.
And my wife, who's just infinitely patient, is helping me notice these things too. She's like, it makes a whole bunch of sense knowing that, that you most likely have ADHD, considering the fact that you always have to have all the stuff that you want to interact with or remember in front of you. And that's why your desk is the way it is, because if anything is out of your sight, it's going to be completely out of mind permanently. And that's 100% how I operate. I'll forget that I have, like, I bought my car doesn't have a space for a front license plate, so it's currently zip tied on. Mm-hmm. I bought a license plate holder to install in my car, and I forget about it every time I see it, because to this day, I forget to put it somewhere where I will see it.
That's so funny.
And it's been 4 years.
Oh my gosh.
And I keep forgetting that that I own it. I have to clean my car before I attach it to it. And so like when I remember that it exists, my car is not clean, and it's like right now it's snowing, so I can't wash my car.
Yeah.
And so like by this time tomorrow, I will have forgotten about it entirely.
That's so funny.
Because I have not put it in front of me.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but is it true that with ADHD, people think of it as this thing where you are unable to focus on anything, but isn't it true that you can you don't focus on a bunch of things, but you're very able to focus on the things that like truly interest you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was the other thing. Like, I can remember the most ridiculous facts about martial arts and racing, but I can't tell you, like, I couldn't attend a class and then tell you what I learned if I didn't absolutely love it. And there's something that's really, really common in people with ADHD is called hyperfocusing, where you'll only focus on a specific thing for so long that you'll forget to eat. You'll forget to do anything else. You'll forget your plans, that kind of thing, which is actually one reason that I got pretty good at racing, is because I could sit in front of Gran Turismo for 7 hours without an issue.
Yeah. Cool.
So I like to call it a broken superpower.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a funny way of putting it.
It's really like understanding. This is going to sound interesting, but it has allowed me to forgive myself for how poorly I performed in certain areas of my life in my past.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Understanding that it's like something built into it's a feature.
Yeah,
it's not a glitch.
Exactly. It's a feature of Cyrus.
There you go.
Yeah. And I mean, it's brought you to, I assume albeit the pandemic, but otherwise, you're happy with where you are.
Yeah.
You're doing things that actually interest you, which is something that not everyone can say that.
Yeah, absolutely. I consider myself extremely lucky. I still consider, for the most part, luck is preparedness meeting coincidence. I couldn't remember the word. But like, yeah, I've been really lucky, but I've also worked really hard to take advantage of the luck when I encountered it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does. So I want to wrap this up in a couple minutes. We've been going for a while, but before we do, I'm going to ask you a random question.
I love it.
What is your favorite place that you visited in your life, and what is one landmark of that place that especially interests you?
All right, that's a hard one. I haven't actually traveled much. I've never left the country.
Okay.
Which is interesting. Let's see. It might be Times Square.
Okay.
The first time I went to New York, it was for GT Academy, and it was the first time I'd been to New York, like the actual New York proper, and our hotel was 2 blocks away from Times Square. So we got the full New York experience
Yeah, yeah.
immediately. And it was so surreal. The massive amounts of buildings, how, like, I mean, I live in Portland, Oregon, so like that's a fairly good sized city.
Mhm.
And there aren't really skyscrapers as much as there are like tall buildings, but like actual skyscrapers everywhere, dense buildings, people driving like they do on the movies.
Yeah.
Like the real like the actual it felt like they just like it felt like it was being in a movie.
Yeah.
It was really, really interesting. It was exactly like they I cannot think of the word. How they portray
Mhm.
Times Square in the movies. All the
Yeah.
bright lights, all the people. It was really
Definitely.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely in the movies I'd say it's pretty accurate. It's funny.
Crazy. How about you? Where's your
Oh,
favorite place
darn
to-
it. Okay,
Got
so the thing is okay, actually, not that hard of a question. Favorite place I visited was Switzerland. My aunt lives there, and I went to visit when I was 14, and I haven't been there since, unfortunately, but I was definitely too immature to enjoy it as much as I should have at the time.
For sure.
It took me time to realize how amazing it was. And in Switzerland, I couldn't tell you the specific names of the mountains, but there was this one mountain we went to, and I just got to run. We were on top of this, and I'm terrified of heights. But when you're on a mountain, it's a lot different because it's solid ground, and you're not going to fall off. It's not like we were climbing the mountain. We were on a flat area of the mountain. And you see so much, and you just get to run around. There's some snow that was never on the ground before because it's so cold up there, and very blissful, and yeah.
That sounds great.
Yeah, it was
That's on the
really-
bucket list for sure.
I'll never forget that. Just this one specific area of the mountain.
That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely that.
I like that.
Yeah. All right, Cyrus. Well, we've been talking for about an hour and 20 minutes, so
We did it.
yeah, I want to thank you so much for doing this with me and bringing your interesting perspectives here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, no problem at all. I've been wanting to do this for so long. So
This is great.
this is perfect. Yeah. All right. Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you guys later. Cyrus, you want to salute everyone?
Everyone, you're wonderful for listening. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Peace.
Now let's see what we can do to sabotage this battle station.